In a world with so many people, we often get caught up thinking about our own struggles and opinions without considering those of others. This concept is true for many aspects of life, especially in everyday interactions. However, an often overlooked aspect is on anxiety and depression. Every day, in school, at work, and in the household, we overlook the internal struggles of others. To elaborate, people in today's society are locked in a prison of embarrassment because they believe their anxieties and depressions are solely unique to them, and that no one would begin to understand their issues. This neglect and embarrassment are not necessarily bad things, but rather an innocent ignorance to the fact that others are going through the same labors we are. Individuals, whether we are near or close to them, might just comprehend and be sympathetic to our deep internal struggles. When asked if they had ever experienced anxiety and/or depression, about 49% answered having depression, and about 69% answered having anxiety. On the subject of depression, in our study, we received responses ranging from self-harm to social isolation, and from uncleanliness to neglect. Further, on the subject of anxiety, in our study, we received responses ranging from panic attacks to social anxiety, from medication-induced anxiety to overthinking, and from school stresses to anxieties brought on by injuries. Anxiety and depression also do not have to affect someone directly. It can be perceived through an exterior individual who becomes worried for their friend in need. In fact, one responder stated that, quote, "In 7th grade, one of my closest friends was really struggling with depression, and it was really scary because I was afraid that she wouldn't be at school the next day." End quote. As can be told, there are many different varieties of anxiety and depression that get shut behind closed doors. And that's why we set out to interview those willing about their individual experiences and opinions on both.
If comfortable, please describe your experiences with anxiety and/or depression.
My experiences with anxiety and depression happened because of different family traumas and injuries, and there are also a few deaths on the way.
Okay. So how has this impacted your daily life?
This impacted my daily life by basically just sticking it in the back of my mind that there was always something missing, and also in some cases something added to the day that just didn't really work out in a good way for most of my family.
All right.
If comfortable, please describe your experience or experiences with anxiety and or depression.
Okay, I kind of always had like a sense of anxiety. There's never been like a moment where I've not been like, oh, what if this happened? Anxiety isn't a major part of my life, but it still causes me to have a lot of breakdowns no matter what. I've never really had like a full-on breakdown. I didn't have one until like last year. But depression, I first learned about in 8th grade, and it's just kind of, I didn't tell anyone about it because I didn't think that anyone would understand. I always thought that people would just push it away because I tried telling people, and my friends were all like, oh yeah, me too. And I just never was able to get it out and tell people. But recently I finally told my mom, after about 2 years of dealing with it. I told her, I was like, I've been dealing with this for a long time. And it really had, like, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders.
So how has this impacted your daily life?
During my daily life, there's not a lot that makes me very anxious or overwhelmed, but there can be some points where I can't deal with it and I need to take a step back.
If comfortable, please describe your experience or experiences with anxiety or depression.
Okay, so I first had anxiety in like 7th grade. Yeah, it was 7th grade. So I had an injury in 6th grade. It was an ACL tear and I had to get surgery for it. And for some reason, like right after that, I just got like horrible anxiety. Like I couldn't go anywhere. And it was mostly like in busy places or places like school. Like school was a big one. Like I would just get so freaked out. Like I wouldn't feel like I was like there. It was more like an out of body experience. It was kind of weird. I don't really know how to describe it. But then also, along with that, I felt like pretty depressed. I mean, like, I wasn't diagnosed with depression or anxiety, but I was pretty sure that's what those were. But I didn't want to be like, I have anxiety and depression because I wasn't diagnosed.
Can you detail, if you're comfortable, detail any experiences you've had with depression and or anxiety?
Well, so I suffer from both depression and anxiety. My depression is the worst. So with my depression, it started, when did it start? Around middle school, I'd say. I just started having like these feelings. Just I would have these days where I'm just, meh, I don't want to do anything. And eventually that evolved into like stuff like, oh, I don't want to do anything. I'm not doing anything. What am I doing? What am I doing for other people? What purpose do I have? And there was one night where it all just got to be too much. And for undisclosed reasons, I was shipped off to the hospital. I've been a good bit better, but every once in a while I still have that feeling like I don't want to do anything. But before I really started recovering, it was like this, what am I worth?
Can you tell me a brief summary of how you've dealt with mental illness in the past few years?
So it started around the beginning of junior year. I had a lot of work, my classes were really hard, and I started experiencing like daytime fatigue, like I was really tired all the time. And then it got to a point where I was so stressed out all the time because I was taking lots of AP classes, and just like the stress from that plus being tired all the time, I wasn't able to get work done. I was falling behind in school. I was missing school because of it. And then I started getting like severe anxiety to the point where I couldn't even get out of bed in the mornings, and I started being really moody, and just like life was just not good at all. And then beginning of senior year, or like the summer before senior year, I started medication. I started on Zoloft, which I was kind of nervous about because I asked around about it, and people said that it made them like go crazy. They didn't really like it. But I was like, okay, well, it's my first try. Not everybody's the same. Yeah. So I tried it. There wasn't anything really bad with it except for the fact that it made me I lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks from it.
Which is not normal.
Which isn't normal, yeah. But it was because it makes you not hungry at all. So I would literally forget to eat. And because my immune system is so quick, I lost so much weight so quickly because of that. So I had to go off of it, but it didn't make me go crazy or anything.
Yeah.
But this year was really, really bad because the medications still weren't working. I started seeing a therapist, and they told me that I had chronic anxiety and PTSD, which it was hard to believe that I had chronic anxiety because my whole life I never had anxiety. The only time I ever got anxiety was talking in front of large groups of people. But I'm a pretty outgoing person, so I don't know how I ever got that stage fright, but it's a normal thing. So then I was just dealing with that, and from sophomore year when it started kinda to junior year when it kinda got to the point where I couldn't really handle it anymore, I needed to start medicine. And then senior year was just so bad. It was getting worse and worse and worse. They tried different medications, different things to try and figure out what was wrong with me. Therapy, nothing was working. And I was I lost all hope. I told myself I couldn't do certain things because of my mental illness. I dropped classes because of it, because it was just too much, and I thought that the classes were adding to my stress, and maybe that's why it was getting worse. And then I saw a doctor, and they were I saw my family doctor, and I was telling him about all these problems. I'm for the last 3 years I've been having problems with just being tired in general, daytime fatigue every single day, and it's awful. I don't have energy to do the things I used to love to do for hobbies, running track. I'd be afraid to run it was so weird because like I would run to release stress. So
Yeah.
like that was really bad. And then like I'm OCD, like I'm constantly cleaning and everything, and like I would clean to relieve stress too.
And can you tell me a little bit about how your interaction with birth control has affected it?
So I got on birth control originally because they said it would help with acne. So started birth control. I got the implant because I suck at remembering to take medicine, and it's not good to be on and off medicine. So, I mean, I'm better at it now, but that was when I was a sophomore. So I was like, I don't feel like dealing with it. If I can just get something that's easier, then I'll just do it.
Yeah.
So I got the Nexplanon in my arm, which is an implant that goes in your arm. It's about like this big, and it releases hormones. And my like period completely stopped. Like it was making me go insane. Like my mood swings were so bad. And honestly, the sleep disorder definitely has caused a lot of my problems, but at the same time, I definitely feel like that after I had that in, that's what caused my anxiety, because that drug is not tested, it's not meant for younger girls, it's meant for older women. That's what it was tested for, older women. So like they don't really know the side effects that happen for younger people, and mine was it made me go insane, and I feel like it may have permanently did something in my head, because now like I still have anxiety now, but because I've had it for 3 years, it's not as bad, because I've learned how to deal with it, that I need to create schedules and lists to get things done, focus on one thing at a time, learned different techniques to like help myself not have panic attacks, because end of my junior year, when everything was super bad, I was just hopeless, didn't know what was working, I was having panic attacks at school. Like the days I would come to school, one little thing would set me off. Like one little thing would ruin my day, like getting a bad grade on a test, or someone saying something to me, or hearing something that someone said about me that was rude or something. It just completely wrecked me, and I'd have a full breakdown. So tell me about what experiences you've had with depression and anxiety.
Well, none of it's diagnosed, but I do get really anxious about things all the time. A good example is, like, even last night, I had, like, just a small audition for something and had, like, an anxiety attack over it. Same thing with depression. It's not diagnosed, but I do kind of get, like, lonely. I have a lack of motivation a lot of times. Last year, I don't know, I wasn't doing so well. Did some things that I probably shouldn't have. And I don't know, there's been times where I've just gotten to the point where, like, I just didn't want to be here anymore, and it was really, really bad. And it's gotten better, but...
And how has this affected your school life and your social life?
It's really hard to keep up with things. Like, I don't know, it's, like, school's really stressful, and especially towards, like, May, when we start getting a lot of homework, because it's, like, the end of the year, and we have finals soon, and, like, you have to study for everything, and every teacher ever decides to do an end-of-the-year project. Like, I get really stressed out, and then I end up falling behind on most of it, and my grades kind of plummet. And then I do end up catching up eventually, but, like, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm also a procrastinator. Mm-hmm. So, like, I procrastinate till the very end, and then I'm so sad, and, like, not sad. So I get so mad at myself because it's not perfect, but it's never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And it makes me really stressed out.
And how does it affect your social life?
I tend to, like I either talk to people a lot or I pull away really quickly. And being a both anxious and depressed person, which, like, are the opposites, I get anxious that people are going to worry that something's wrong, so then I say something about it, and then I also feel bad because now I've burdened them with that, and that doesn't help either.
What do your friends say about it?
It depends on the person. I don't know. Some of them are like, don't worry, you can trust me, like, it's fine. And, like, other people are like, I'm used to worrying about people, and it just makes me feel bad. But like, I know they care, but something in my head is telling me that like I shouldn't have said that.
Along with our interviews on people's experiences with anxiety and depression, we wanted to gain more information on the ideas of the stereotypes and media bias on such mental illnesses. Therefore, we sought out to interview Mrs. Kuhn, our school's psychology teacher.
Do you think there are any stereotypes surrounding like either of them?
Of course.
What are those stereotypes?
That if someone has mental illness, that they're weak. That mental illness doesn't exist. It's just you can't cope with what life gives you. You should be just suck it up and get over it. People don't understand the physical problems that come with anxiety and depression. I think a lot of people think it's a choice, but it's not.
How do you think these stereotypes impact how students approach mental illness?
I think it's still a stigma attached to it. They don't understand that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So just as you would go to the doctor if you had the flu, you should go to the doctor if you have issues related to anxiety or depression. Some students avoid coming to school because it's just one more stressor. There's not an understanding by teachers, by other students. So it's a vicious cycle of negativity that just keeps spinning.
Oh, okay. So I know there's kind of this stigma that like if it's not diagnosed then it's not as valid. Do you think that like depending on the person, do you think self-diagnosis or like undiagnosed but it's still there, do you think that's just as valid?
There's something called the Interent syndrome, and the Interent syndrome is the idea that when you are like studying psychology or studying depression or studying anxiety or sleep disorders or anything, you're like, oh my gosh, I have this. Like, this is totally me. Like, so self-diagnoses are not good. If you think you have a problem, you need to go to somebody to get help. So, start with the guidance office. They actually have basic screeners that they can do. Go to your family physician. Go to your parents. But yeah, because a lot of times self-diagnosis leads to self-medication. And self-medication is not a good thing. Everybody goes through rough times. That doesn't mean you have a diagnosable mental illness. That also doesn't mean you don't need help getting through those rough times. So, like, if you take general psychology, you'll learn there's lots of different fields of psychology. One of the fields of psychology is counseling psychology. Counseling psychology is there to help people get through everyday life when they're struggling a little bit. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you have depression, doesn't mean you have anxiety, doesn't mean you have ADHD. There doesn't need to be a diagnosable reason for behaviors and feelings, but behaviors and feelings should be dealt with. Although a diagnosis kind of gives validation or gives something a name, and then people see, oh, here's this name. Like, I wanted to know, like, what disorder did you have? Because immediately, okay, insomnia, I know that, I'm comfortable with that. So we like those nice and neat packages, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know any teenager that's going to get through high school that's not going to have some struggles at some point in time. That doesn't mean they have a mental illness. So just, it's okay to struggle. I know it doesn't feel good to struggle. I don't like struggling, but it's okay to struggle, and that's how you learn, and that's how you become resilient. But it's also okay to get help when you're struggling. The other thing is, people don't understand that depression isn't just like sadness. Like, depression can manifest itself in other ways. And so it is that, I want to sleep, or I'm not eating, or I'm overeating, or I'm, undersleeping. It's not just that I want to sit in the corner and cry. And there's the other thing with, like, highly motivated, involved kids at school. They're very good at putting on the happy face at school and, oh, I'm so successful, but then they're going home and crying themselves to sleep at night. But nobody's seeing that, and they're certainly not telling their parents, because my parents' expectations are up here and I don't want to disappoint them. And again, just very complex issues that go on. So yeah, I would say there's people that don't, I've never met this person before. Why do I want to tell them my deepest, darkest secret?
Because of the information we received from Mrs. Kuhn, we wanted to hear the school's opinions on the stereotypes and media bias on anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm. Has social media affected your mental state, and how?
Yes, there's sometimes when like I'm depressed and things that I see on Instagram, such as like ways to like a reminder, like you'll be like scrolling down and it'll be like, reminder, get out of bed, brush your teeth, do this, do that, and that helps me. But then I'll be like on Snapchat and seeing people like have fun without me, even though I'm not friends with them, or like just seeing people talk and stuff, that kind of worse. So it depends on the platform.
How does social media affect self-diagnosis?
Okay, so there's a lot of like depression memes on like Instagram, so I think it's fairly easy to come across them, and then if you do, you're like, oh, I relate to that, I'm depressed. But you're not probably like depressed. A lot of people like confuse depression with sadness, and they're like different things. So like, yeah, a lot of people, social media things going on, people talk about being depressed. A lot of people think that just because they relate, they're depressed.
Do you think there are any stereotypes surrounding either of them?
Oh yeah. I think some of the stereotypes for depression is you're always sad, no matter what. And sometimes it's not that. It's just a lot of not motivating. I think a lot of people deal with crying. That's some way of getting it out. And some people like me, I was not able to cry. And I think that's something that really signaled it to me that I was like, yeah, there's something wrong.
So how does social media affect self-diagnosis?
I think a lot of people see things on social media that aren't true about anything, and they think, oh, I have that. Because they think, oh, I've been sad for 2 or 3 days, that means I'm depressed. And a lot of the times just being sad isn't a huge part of it. A lot of things are put out there that aren't correct, and there's definitely a lot of research that needs to be done before you say, yes, I have this, or no, I don't.
So has social media affected your mental state? If so, how?
Yeah, I think when I go on social media, I used to look at these girls who had these perfect bodies and amazing skin, and it would dig me deeper, and I thought, why would I even try?
So how do you think social media affects how people self-diagnose themselves?
So again, with the throwing around the terms anxiety and depression loosely, I feel like social media does that a lot. Then again, I don't have any social media, and when I did, it was in 7th grade. And that's where the depression kicked in. Because I saw people being super cool, being like so popular, and I wanted to be that. And every time I tried, it just wouldn't work out. So I was like, I'm not worth it. I'm not anything. Like, who I am is not acceptable, you know, because of what I see in social media. So thank God I deleted all that. And I think that's where I found who I really was and found that I love myself, you know?
I think social media can really glorify the mental illnesses because, you know, if people already have problems in their life, like I said, they hop on or log into their social media and they just see all these people with, you know, great lives and great families, always going on trips, getting new things. So.
But do you also think that social media, like, makes anxiety and depression less important than they actually are? Like, downgrades them?
When people, you know, like, make their lives harder on themselves because of what they're seeing on social media, I think most adults or authority figures that are kind of in charge of making sure that people aren't going through these things, it can kind of make it seem to them like, oh, well, they're just overreacting. They're not really going through anything.
Based on the responses that we received and our own private research, we concluded that the media has a tendency to portray mental illnesses incorrectly. For example, on social media platforms, reality is oftentimes bent. In an interview with Mrs. Shady, one of our school's counselors, she made the comment, quote, "There's a false reality in social media. We normally present a positive image of us on social media. Sometimes people think that what they see on social media represents how a person truly is. This makes us compare ourselves and makes us think, what am I doing wrong? Because we only see the happy moments in social media." End quote. Therefore, social media can be especially misleading, which is a factor as to why it can contribute to someone's mental health negatively. Further, in television shows, movies, etc., they portray characters who have mental illnesses in extreme measures. A common example is murders. This does not help the common stereotype the media portrays of people with a mental illness being violent. The media tends to exaggerate mental illnesses, which casts many stereotypes on the topic. Many people do not know much about mental illnesses, so they rely on the mass media, newspapers, movies, etc., for all of their information on the topic. The media casts a stigmatization on mental health. The media tends to infer that people with certain mental illnesses are troublesome in society. They figure that these people should be secluded from society. The media has created a major stereotype, being everyone who has, for example, depression has suicidal thoughts. In reality, that is not true. The media also portrays mental illnesses as unrecoverable and will often downplay how severe certain illnesses really are. For example, anorexia has the highest death rate out of all of the eating disorders. However, many people do not know this due to the media downplaying how serious this eating disorder is. We also found that, because media portrays mental illnesses in the way that it does, copycat suicides may occur. These are instances where one person may see another person commit suicide, and as a result of that person's suicide, the media shows an outpouring of sadness and attention towards that person. This may lead to the viewer to make the decision to commit suicide for themselves due to jealousy or various other things. And sometimes, these people do have their own disorders, but however, many other times, they just don't understand the severity of their decisions. In conclusion, many people in our school and society have mental illnesses such as anxiety and depression that we may not realize they have. In the words of Mrs. Shady, quote, "Anxiety is something everyone deals with. It is healthy for someone to have a little bit of anxiety, but it is not healthy to never experience any anxiety in life." End quote. Even though sometimes it may be hard to see an end to our daily struggles, there is hope. And a few ways to get help include avoiding stimulating substances, being active, getting rest, talking about it to others, and managing your priorities effectively. All in all, if you were able to take anything away from this documentary, it would be that everyone, at some point, will be in a dark place, but that does not mean there isn't hope. For more information on how to get help, please see the pamphlets placed next to our stand. Thank you so much for watching.